What if your true identity didn't start with your family, your past, or your experiences, but with a God who already called you, approved you, and appointed you before your mother ever held you? Let's talk about it. I want to talk to you from the subject called before you were formed, rediscovering your God given identity. Before you ever took your first breath, God had already spoken over your life. Before you cried your first cry, He had already given you purpose. Before anyone labeled you, God had already named you. One of the greatest truths in all of the scriptures is this: identity begins before birth. Look at Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5 in the Amplified. Listen to what he says. It says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you and approved of you as my chosen instrument. And before you were born, I separated and set you apart, consecrating you, and I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." Notice the word, I knew you and approved you. Notice the progression. God's approval came before man's acceptance. That means rejection cannot cancel what God has already confirmed. That means opinions can't override what God ordained. No matter who overlooked you, misunderstood you, or even criticized you, their words do not hold the authority to define you. This means identity is not developed, it's discovered. Identity is not achieved, it's received. Identity is not given by culture, it's given by the Creator, because you were set apart long before you were ever seen. See, many people today are searching for identity in achievements, things like appearance, relationship, money, platforms, and even success. But those things can't tell you who you are because they don't form you. Only the one who formed you has the right to define who you are. In fact, in Psalms chapter 139, verse 15, and I'm going to read verse 16 as well in the Amplified, it says, "My frame was not hidden from you when I was being formed in secret and intricately and curiously wrought, as if embroidered with various colors in the depths of the earth, a region of darkness and mystery. Your eyes saw my unformed substance, and in your books all the days of my life were written before ever they took shape, when as yet there was none of them." Saints, this means you're not the result of chance, not the result of accident or even coincidence. You are the outcome of intention. This also means, watch this, God knew you before you knew you. Did you know that? Listen to what it says. Your life didn't begin the day you were born. It began in the mind of God long before anyone ever knew your name. You are not an accident. You are not undefined. God already knew you, approved you, and assigned purpose to you before your body ever formed. Your identity doesn't start with your history. It starts with His intention. Before the foundation of the world, before time itself began, God spoke your name in heaven. He knew the color of your eyes, the sound of your laugh, and the dreams that you would carry in your heart. So you are known by God. That means every detail of your life was seen and celebrated before you ever took your first breath. Then you were approved by heaven, meaning your value was established in eternity, not earned through earthly achievement. And lastly, you are signed with purpose. Your calling was written in the fabric of creation itself. So God knew you before you knew you. What does this mean? This means that God knew your personality, He knew your giftings, He knew your callings, and He knew your struggles. He knew your strengths, and He still said yes to your existence. In other words, God knew your journey before you began walking it. It says that you were formed in secret, but your purpose, I want you to hear this, was intricately, it says, and curiously wrought and written in eternity. This is why God made that bold statement back in Jeremiah when he said, "Before I formed you, I knew you." He wasn't referring to after or during, but before, which means identity starts with divine knowledge and not human discovery. This also means rejection cannot cancel what God has already confirmed in our books. Their words don't hold the authority, like I said, to define you, which brings us to our next point. God approved you before anyone else had an opinion. Listen to what Romans chapter 8, verse 30 says. In the Amplified, it says, "And those whom he thus foreordained, he also called. And those whom he called, he also justified." That means he acquitted, made righteous, putting them into right standing with himself. And those whom he justified, it says he also glorified, meaning he raised them to a heavenly dignity and condition or state of being. So God approved you before anyone else had an opinion. Notice the wording. It said, "And those whom he thus foreordained, he also called." It says he justified and he glorified. Now, notice the progression. God's approval came before man's acceptance. That means opinions cannot override what God ordained. No matter who overlooked you, misunderstood you, or criticized you, their words don't hold the authority to define you. This is why the word justified is so important. It means God declared you worthy. And then it said glorified, which means God placed honor on you, which means your identity is rooted in God's approval and not in man's applause. Yeah, they can applaud you, but listen, you don't live for acceptance. You live for acceptance. God approved you before a single person had the chance to judge you. You know what I call this? I call this God appointed you before life tried to disqualify you. Today, you have a choice to believe what circumstances say about you or to embrace what God declares over you. Before time began, you were called before you were formed, and nothing in the world can change that eternal truth. Your identity is not up to debate. It was settled in heaven before it was ever questioned on earth. You are known, approved, and appointed by the creator of the universe himself. That's why it says in Jeremiah 1:5, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." So remember your origin. You came from the heart of God, designed with intention and crowned with purpose. Number two, reject false narratives. Don't let temporary setbacks define your permanent identity in Christ. And last, step into your calling. Walk boldly in your assignment, the assignment that God placed on your life before you were born. So, God appointed you before life tried to disqualify you. And life will try to convince you that your mistakes and your failures, your fears and your struggles have disqualified you. But God says the opposite. Ephesians 2:10. It says, "For we are God's own handiwork, his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus, born anew, that we may do those good works which God predestined, planned beforehand for us, taking paths which he prepared ahead of time, that we should walk in them, living what? The good life, which he prearranged and made ready for us to live." So that word predestined, it means God prepared your assignment before you arrived. So when God told Jeremiah, when he said, "I appointed you," and when you hear that today, that same word appointed, when God says he appointed you, he is declaring that purpose is not optional. It's already ordained. You're not trying to become something. You're walking into something that God has already completed. So the truth about identity is this: you were called before you were born. You were known before you were seen. And then you were chosen before you were damaged. You were approved before you were rejected. and you were appointed before you ever struggled. So when you understand this, when revelation settles in your spirit, then insecurity loses its power. Fear loses its influence, lies lose their grips, and you stop chasing identity and start living from identity. Why? Because identity is not your journey towards God. Identity is God's revelation towards you. And when you finally accept what God has spoken, then everything about your life, saints, begins to align with his original intention. Hey guys, if this message has encouraged you, why don't you take a moment to share it with someone who is in a waiting season? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so that you'll never miss another teaching right here at Reflective Image Broadcast, where we reflect the image and likeness of God in the earth.